Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this, because today we're looking at one of the absolute most bizarre, almost unbelievable events hidden in human history. So, picture this. It's 1932, you've got the golden dust of the Australian outback hanging heavy in the air, and a government officially declares war. But they don't declare war on a rogue nation, they don't declare war on a rebel uprising, no. They declare war on birds, and spoiler alert here, the birds actually won.
I mean, it literally sounds like the setup to a joke, right? So our central question for this explainer is pretty simple. How exactly did a fully armed, modern military lose a war to a flock of birds? We usually tend to think of 20th century military forces, equipped with modern machinery and serious firepower, as practically invincible against the natural world. But as you're about to see, nature is incredibly unpredictable, and sometimes it's remarkably well equipped to fight back. Section 1. A post-war agricultural crisis.
So to understand this, our story really starts in 1918, right after the end of World War I. Thousands of veteran soldiers were returning home to Australia, and the government gave them farmland in Western Australia to kind of help them start over. For years, these veterans worked this dry, red earth just to plant fields of golden weed. But then, 1929 hit. The Great Depression devastated the global economy, and suddenly, these farmers were struggling just to survive. By the time we hit 1932, they finally planted their wheat, and they're desperately hoping for a successful harvest to save their fragile economic recovery. A massive crisis is looming, but surprisingly, it's not the economy that's about to break them.
Let's move to Section 2, the Great Feathered Invasion. 20,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. Imagine standing on your farm, you look out at the horizon, and you see this massive wall of dust approaching. And no, it wasn't a dust storm. Right after their breeding season, over 20,000 emus began their natural migration inland, and unfortunately for our struggling veterans, this absolutely massive flock was drawn straight into their newly planted golden wheat fields.
And the resulting devastation, it was absolute. The emus' destruction tactics were, honestly, highly effective. I mean, these are massive, incredibly powerful, flightless birds. They easily tore right through those wooden farm fences like they were nothing. Once they got inside, they trampled the delicate wheat crops straight into the dirt, and they simply ate everything in sight. The farmers, who were already hanging on by a total thread because of the depression, were completely helpless against this moving wall of feathers and claws. So, getting desperate, they begged the government for help to save their livelihoods.
Section 3. Deployment of the military.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer crazy contrast between the two opposing forces. On the left, we've got the official response from the Australian military. The whole operation was led by Major Gwyneth Meredith, who literally rolled into the outback with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. And then on the right, we have the enemy. 20,000 incredibly fast, highly unpredictable, and very hungry flightless birds. On paper, it looks like a severe overreaction by the military, right? Just this overwhelming show of force against mere wildlife. But the military was actually about to get a very harsh lesson in outback warfare.
Which brings us to Section 4. Outsmarted by emus.
So, Major Meredith approached this exactingly. He applied standard military doctrine to the situation. Look at this ambush plan. Step 1, deploy troops out into the harsh, open scrubland. Step 2, carefully herd the birds into a concentrated area to really maximize the effectiveness of the weaponry. And step 3, open fire from cover using those Lewis machine guns. I mean, it was a textbook ambush strategy. The soldiers set up their positions, the sun was beating down, the tension was building and building as the flock approached, and then the guns opened up.
But the crucial point is, the plan completely fell apart the very second the shooting started. The emus didn't politely group together to be fired upon. Nope. Instead, the exact moment they heard the gunfire, they scattered in absolutely every direction across the open scrubland. They proved to be far smarter and significantly faster than the military ever anticipated. They broke up into these small, erratic groups, darting through the dust and making it utterly impossible for the machine gunners to get a clear, sustained shot. The birds effectively neutralized the military's heavy weaponry simply through pure chaos and speed.
Section 5. A humiliating surrender. The data here truly tells the whole embarrassing story. Take a look at this military efficiency breakdown. On the left side, you have an enormous expenditure of resources. We're talking 10,000 rounds of heavy ammunition fired into the scrubland over days and days of failed ambushes. And on the right, barely a few dozen birds actually brought down. The whole operation was an unmitigated tactical failure. Ultimately, with the military trucks driving away at sunset, leaving empty ammunition crates behind in the dirt, the government just quietly called the whole thing off.
But of course, you can't wage a war on birds, lose, and expect no one to notice. It was a massive public relations disaster. Newspapers across the country completely mocked the military's defeat. The whole idea of heavily armed, trained soldiers retreating from a flock of farm-raiding birds was just way too absurd for the press to ignore. The mighty military machine had literally been broken by an opponent that didn't even have hands.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer awe and frankly frustration of the men on the ground. One of the military officers involved in the campaign later joked with the press. He said, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world." It is just a stunning quote because it reveals this genuine, begrudging respect for the emu's incredible endurance and survival instincts. They took the absolute best the military had to offer and literally ran away with the victory.
To this day, the Great Emu War remains one of the absolute strangest and most fascinating military defeats in human history, and it forces us to ask a rather humbling question as we wrap up this explainer. Will humanity ever learn that sometimes, despite all our advanced technology and firepower, nature simply refuses to lose? It's a pretty great reminder that we share this planet with forces that are wild, resilient, and deeply, deeply unpredictable. Thank you so much for joining me to uncover this unbelievable moment hidden in history. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.